The council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Thelvan posed the question that had been whispered in 1,000 corridors across 100 worlds. His crystalline voice carried the weight of genuine curiosity, tinged with something that might have been fear. Tell us, human, what is your world's apex predator? What creature should we fear if we were to walk upon your earth? The delegates leaned forward in their seats, their various appendages and sensory organs focused intently on the lone human standing at the center of the Great Hall. They had studied Earth's databases, had seen the images of great white sharks cutting through ocean depths, of lions ruling their savannas, of bears commanding their forests. They expected Marcus Chen to name one of these magnificent beasts, to speak of fang and claw, of venom and crushing strength. Instead, the human's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, something ancient and knowing that made several delegates unconsciously retreat into their shells or adjust their defensive postures. Marcus raised his hand slowly, deliberately, and with a gesture that would echo through galactic history, he pointed directly at himself. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the soft hum of the translation matrix struggling to process the implications of such a simple gesture. Me, he said, his voice steady and calm, carrying none of the bravado they might have expected. We are. The Vardesh delegate, whose species had evolved from pack hunters on a world of perpetual twilight, released a sound that the translators rendered as incredulous laughter. You jest, surely. Your species lacks natural weapons, your bodies are fragile, your young take years to mature. How can you claim dominance over creatures that outweigh you, outrun you, possess natural armaments you cannot match? Marcus nodded, as if he had expected this exact response, as if he had been waiting his entire life to explain what it meant to be human, what it meant to be the inheritor of a legacy written in stone tools and star charts alike. You're absolutely right, Marcus began, his tone conversational, almost gentle. We have no claws worth mentioning, no venom, no armored hide. A human child is helpless for years, vulnerable in ways your species can barely comprehend. We can be killed by creatures a fraction of our size, by microscopic organisms we cannot see, by environmental conditions that would merely inconvenience your kind. He paused, letting his words settle over the assembly like snow before the avalanche. And yet, we are the apex predator of Earth, undisputed and unchallenged. Do you know why? The chamber remained silent, but now the quality of that silence had changed. It was no longer the silence of curiosity, but of dawning realization, the kind of quiet that precedes revelations that reshape understanding. Marcus began to walk slowly around the circular platform, his movements measured, purposeful, and the delegates tracked him with the instincts of prey watching a hunter circle. We are apex predators not because of what we are, but because of what we do, Marcus continued, his voice gaining strength, carrying the weight of 10,000 generations. Every apex predator you know achieved their status through evolutionary gifts, through natural advantages granted by time and selection. They are perfect expressions of their ecological niches, beautifully adapted, supremely capable within their domains. But they are limited by those very gifts, constrained by the parameters of their biology. He stopped walking, standing perfectly still at the center of the chamber, and when he spoke again, his words carried the certainty of geological truth. We made ourselves apex predators. We chose it. We decided that having no natural weapons meant we would create weapons. We decided that being slow meant we would build tools to move faster. We decided that being weak meant we would construct machines to amplify our strength. Every disadvantage we faced, we transformed into a challenge to overcome, and we overcame them all. The translation matrix hummed with increased activity as emotional subroutines struggled to convey the shifting mood in the chamber, the growing understanding that they were not merely listening to a presentation, but witnessing a testimony, a declaration of what it meant to be human, delivered with quiet pride and absolute conviction. Ambassador Thelvan's crystalline form shifted through several color spectrums, a visible manifestation of cognitive dissonance. But surely, he ventured, his translator struggling with the nuances of his species' formal debate protocols, this speaks to tool use, to intelligence, not to predation. Many species create tools. The Krell fashion instruments from mineral deposits, the Zen cultivate living technologies. Tool use alone does not make one an apex predator. Marcus's expression softened, not with weakness, but with the patience of someone about to reveal a truth so fundamental that it reshaped the listener's understanding of reality itself. "You're thinking of tools as separate from the predator," he said quietly. "You're imagining that a weapon is something we pick up and put down, something external to our nature. But that's not how it works with humans. We don't just use tools. We are tool users in the same way that a shark is a swimmer, in the same way that a hawk is a flyer. It's not what we do, it's what we are, woven into the fabric of our being at every level." He gestured to the chamber around them, to the magnificent architecture that housed the Galactic Council, built by a species that had evolved in harmony with their environment, who had shaped stone with natural secretions and biomechanical processes. "When you build, you grow your structures, you cultivate them. It's beautiful, it's elegant, it's an extension of your biology. But when we build, we impose our will upon materials that have no relationship to us, we force metal and polymer and crystal to obey designs that exist only in our minds. We see a universe that was not made for us, and we reshape it until it is." The Vardesh delegate, Kroth Nor, leaned forward, his predatory instincts engaged despite himself. "This is adaptation, not predation. You describe survivors, not hunters." Marcus's smile returned, and this time there was no mistaking the edge in it, the recognition of a fundamental truth that the assembled species had not yet grasped. "Let me tell you about human hunting," Marcus said, and his voice dropped to something almost conversational, intimate, as if sharing a secret among friends. "Long before we reached the stars, before we even dreamed of worlds beyond our own, we hunted the largest land animals on our planet to extinction using nothing but sharpened stones and coordinated effort. We didn't chase them down, we couldn't. We didn't overpower them, we weren't strong enough. Do you know what we did?" The silence invited him to continue, and Marcus obliged. "We followed them. Day after day, year after year, generation after generation. We learned their patterns, their weaknesses, their fears. We studied them with an obsession that your species reserved for survival itself, but we did it for dominance. We walked them to exhaustion, pursued them until their bodies failed, until these magnificent creatures that had ruled their domains for millions of years simply gave up, because they could not escape the patient, relentless, thinking predators that refused to stop coming. The chamber's environmental controls adjusted automatically as several species experienced physiological responses to stress, their bodies responding to the predatory narrative with ancient instincts that transcended culture and evolution. Marcus continued, relentless as the human hunters he described. We called it persistence hunting, and it reveals something essential about human nature. We are endurance predators in ways that extend far beyond the physical. We don't just outlast our prey's bodies, we outlast their strategies, their defenses, their evolutionary advantages. A human hunter doesn't need to be faster than a deer if they can track it for days until it collapses from exhaustion. A human warrior doesn't need natural armor if they can craft protection that exceeds anything biology could provide. A human species doesn't need to evolve over millions of years to adapt to new environments when we can engineer solutions in generations. The Krell observer, a species whose evolution had been shaped by their world's violent tectonic activity, spoke for the first time, their voice resonating through subsonic frequencies. This persistence, this refusal to abandon a goal, this is what you claim makes you apex predators. The inability to recognize when a pursuit is futile. Marcus shook his head slowly, and when he spoke, there was something almost sad in his voice, a recognition of how this truth would sound to species that had never needed to fight for every advantage. It's not inability, it's choice. We recognize futility and we reject it. We see the impossible and we decide it's merely difficult. This isn't ignorance, it's defiance. It's the fundamental human response to any challenge. Watch me. Marcus began to pace again, but now his movements carried a different energy, the rhythm of a story building toward its climax. Let me tell you what happened when humans encountered other apex predators on our world, he said, and the delegates recognized the cadence of oral tradition, of stories passed down through generations, carrying truths that data alone could never convey. In the frozen north of our planet, we met the polar bear, creatures that outweighed us 3-1, possessed claws that could disembowel with a single strike, could swim in waters that would kill an unprotected human in minutes. They were perfectly adapted to one of the harshest environments on Earth, apex predators without equal in their domain. He paused, letting the image settle in the delegates' minds, allowing them to picture these magnificent beasts in all their terrible glory. Do you know what humans did? Marcus asked, and several delegates shook their heads, caught up in the narrative despite their initial skepticism. We moved there. We chose to live in their territory, to compete with them for resources, to establish our dominance in an environment we had no biological right to survive in. We studied them, learned from them, respected them as worthy adversaries, and then we surpassed them. We created clothing from their prey's hides, built shelters that withstood conditions that would kill us in hours, developed tools that let us hunt where they hunted, fish where they fished. And when the bears saw us as prey, as they were evolutionarily programmed to do, we taught them otherwise. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop, though the environmental controls registered no change, a purely psychological response to the implications of Marcus's words. We didn't drive them to extinction, because unlike other predators, we have the capacity for choice, for mercy, for stewardship. But we made it clear, through actions repeated across thousands of encounters, that humans were not prey. We were competitors. We were fellow apex predators. And on a world with only enough room for one species at the top, we would be the ones who remained. Ambassador Thelvan's colors flickered through confused patterns. You speak of choice, of mercy, yet you describe domination. How do you reconcile this? How can you claim moral authority while asserting predatory dominance? Marcus's expression grew thoughtful, and when he responded, his voice carried the weight of ethical wrestling that had occupied human philosophers for millennia. That's the terrible gift of being human, he said softly. We are apex predators with the awareness to question what that means. We can choose not to hunt, not to dominate, not to destroy. But that choice only matters because we have the capacity to do all those things. A shark doesn't choose to hunt, it simply does. A lion doesn't choose to rule its pride, it's driven by instinct. But humans, we choose. Every day, every moment, we choose whether to be predators or protectors, destroyers or creators, and the fact that we struggle with that choice, that we question ourselves, doesn't make us less dangerous. If anything, it makes us more so, because our hunting is not limited by instinct or biology. It's limited only by our will. Kroth Nor, the Vardesh delegate, rose to his full height, his species intimidation display activating unconsciously. You speak in metaphors and historical tales. Show us evidence. Prove that humanity deserves this designation you claim. Marcus nodded slowly, as if he had been waiting for exactly this challenge. Very well. Let me tell you about the food chain on Earth, about trophic levels and ecological relationships. Every ecosystem is built on a pyramid of predation, with energy flowing from the sun to plants to herbivores to predators. At the top of every food chain sits the apex predator, the creature that has no natural predators of its own, that can hunt but cannot be hunted. He pulled up a holographic display, Earth rotating slowly in the air between them, beautiful and terrible in its complexity. On Earth, humans occupy a unique position. We don't just sit at the top of one food chain, we sit at the top of all of them, simultaneously. We harvest from every trophic level, we hunt in every environment, we have made every ecosystem on our planet subject to our choices. The great white shark, apex predator of the oceans. We catch them, we study them, we tag them and track them, and when necessary, we remove them. The saltwater crocodile, unchanged by evolution for millions of years because they achieved perfection in their niche. We farm them. The wolf, the tiger, the eagle, every creature that ruled its domain, we have catalogued, studied, and subordinated to human will. The holographic Earth continued its slow rotation, and Marcus manipulated the display to show heat maps, population distributions, the undeniable footprint of humanity across every continent, every ocean, every climate zone. But this is more than just dominance through technology, Marcus continued, his voice taking on the quality of a teacher imparting a difficult lesson. This is about the fundamental nature of human cognition, about how we process the world and our place in it. Every other apex predator on Earth evolved to fill a specific niche, to dominate a particular environment or prey species. They are specialists, perfected over millennia to do one thing supremely well. Humans are different. We are generalist predators taken to an extreme that nature had never attempted before. He gestured, and the hologram shifted, showing human populations in Arctic ice fields, in scorching deserts, in dense rainforests, in the thin air of mountain peaks. We live everywhere. Not because we evolved to survive in all these environments, but because we refuse to accept the limitations of our biology. A polar bear cannot survive in the desert, but a human can, with preparation and technology. A camel cannot thrive in the Arctic, but a human can, with knowledge and tools. We broke the fundamental rule of evolution, the constraint that says a species must adapt to its environment over generations. We adapted our environment to ourselves, or we adapted ourselves through culture and technology in time frames that make evolution look glacial by comparison. The Krell observer released a subsonic pulse that the translators rendered as profound unease. This is not predation, this is colonization. You describe an invasive species, not an apex predator. Marcus's response was immediate, his tone carrying a certainty born of uncomfortable truth. We are both, and that's what makes us terrifying. An apex predator controls its ecosystem through predation, through the regulation of prey populations. An invasive species disrupts ecosystems, outcompeting native fauna through advantages that didn't evolve in that environment. Humans do both, simultaneously, with conscious awareness of what we're doing. We are apex predators who invaded our own planet, who spread from a single region in Africa to dominate every terrestrial ecosystem on Earth in the span of mere thousands of years. The chamber filled with the sounds of multiple species processing this information, translator matrices working overtime to convey concepts that didn't exist in many of their languages, the idea that a species could be consciously aware of its own ecological impact and continue anyway. Marcus pressed on, knowing that the full truth required confronting the darkest implications of human nature. And here's what you need to understand about human predation, the thing that makes us unique in the history of Earth's evolution. We don't just hunt for food. We hunt for sport, for trophies, for research, for tradition, for revenge, for prevention, for hundreds of reasons that have nothing to do with survival. We are the only apex predator on our planet that can hunt something to extinction and feel remorse about it, that can recognize we're destroying something irreplaceable and struggle with whether to stop. Ambassador Thelvan's colors settled into a pattern that the translator identified as deep contemplation mixed with concern. This self-awareness, this capacity for remorse, surely this moderates your predatory nature. Surely this makes you less of a threat. Marcus's laugh was short and entirely without humor. You would think so, wouldn't you? But self-awareness doesn't reduce our capacity for destruction, it just means we document it, we study it, we understand exactly what we're doing while we do it. We hunted the passenger pigeon to extinction in North America, billions of... We knew, we understood, and we did it anyway. The hologram shifted again, now showing Earth's history in accelerated time, the rise and fall of species, the great extinction events that had punctuated the planet's biological history. Earth has experienced 5 major extinction events in its history, Marcus said, his voice taking on the cadence of eulogy. Asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, climate shifts so severe that the majority of life on the planet perished. These were catastrophes, impersonal and inevitable. But we are currently in the 6th extinction event, and this one is different. This one has a name, the Anthropocene extinction. This one is caused by a single species, by us, by human activity reshaping the planet so fundamentally that thousands of species are vanishing at rates unseen since the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. The delegates sat in stunned silence, the implications washing over them in waves. An extinction event caused not by cosmic catastrophe, not by geological inevitability, but by the conscious actions of a single species aware of what it was doing. Crothnor's voice, when he finally spoke, carried a tremor that his species had evolved to suppress. You speak of this as if it is a point of pride, as if causing a mass extinction proves your claim to apex predator status. How can you stand before this council and declare such things without shame? Marcus's expression, which had remained carefully neutral throughout most of his presentation, finally showed emotion. Pain, regret, determination, all flickering across his features in rapid succession. I speak of it not with pride, but with truth. You asked what Earth's apex predator is, and I'm giving you the complete answer, not the sanitized version. Being an apex predator isn't heroic, it's not noble, it's not something to aspire to. It's a statement of ecological fact. It means we are the species that shapes the environment, that determines which other species survive or perish, that sits at the top of every food chain not through evolutionary right but through conscious choice and relentless effort. He took a breath, and when he continued, his voice carried the weight of collective human guilt and determination in equal measure. But here's the other part of being human, the part that might actually matter to this council. We are the only apex predator in Earth's history that can choose to stop. We are the only species that can recognize the damage we're causing and decide to do something different. We created the concept of conservation, of protected habitats, of endangered species lists. We are the only predator on our planet that actively works to preserve our prey, to maintain biodiversity, to protect ecosystems even when it costs us economically or personally. We are apex predators who became stewards, not because we had to, but because we chose to. The hologram shifted one final time, showing not destruction but restoration, images of rewilded habitats, of species brought back from the brink of extinction, of humans working tirelessly to undo damage they had caused. We brought wolves back to Yellowstone after we had hunted them to extinction in that region, because we understood that the ecosystem needed its apex predators. We established marine sanctuaries, protecting waters from our own fishing fleets because we recognized that our predation was unsustainable. We banned certain chemicals, restricted certain practices, changed our entire industrial infrastructure because we decided that our role as apex predators came with responsibilities we could choose to accept. Ambassador Thelvan's colors shifted to something the translator struggled to interpret, a complex emotion that combined fear with hope, respect with concern. So when you point to yourself and declare that humans are Earth's apex predator, you speak of this duality? The capacity for destruction matched by the capacity for preservation? Marcus nodded slowly, his gesture carrying the weight of 10,000 years of human history, of struggle and growth, of failure and redemption. Yes. We are apex predators who became something more, something that evolution never anticipated. We are predators who can choose not to hunt, destroyers who can choose to create, conquerors who can choose to protect. And that choice, that constant struggle between our predatory instincts and our ethical consciousness, that's what defines us. That's what makes us human. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the chamber. When I point to myself and say that humans are apex predators, I'm not making a boast. I'm issuing a warning and a promise. A warning that we have the capacity to dominate, to destroy, to reshape entire worlds to suit our purposes. We've done it before, we could do it again, and nothing in this galaxy could stop us if we truly committed to conquest. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the soft hum of life support systems and the barely audible whisper of translator matrices processing implications that extended far beyond mere words. Crothnor's voice, when it came, was subdued, his species' natural aggression tempered by something that might have been respect or might have been fear. And the promise? You spoke of a warning and a promise. Marcus's smile, when it came, was genuine, carrying warmth that had been absent throughout most of his presentation. The promise is that we've learned. We've seen what happens when apex predators act without restraint, when domination becomes destruction, when short-term gains cost us irreplaceable losses. We've made mistakes, catastrophic ones, and we've paid for them in ways that haunt us still. But we learned. We changed. We chose to be better than our predatory instincts demanded. He gestured to the assembled delegates, to the magnificent diversity of forms and minds that constituted the Galactic Council. We come to the stars not as conquerors, but as partners. We bring our technology, our adaptability, our relentless human drive to overcome any obstacle, but we also bring our hard-won wisdom about the costs of domination. We are apex predators who chose to evolve beyond predation, who decided that being at the top of the food chain meant we had a responsibility to the entire ecosystem, not just to ourselves. The holographic Earth faded, replaced by a star map showing the nascent human colonies, scattered points of light in the vast darkness, each one a testament to human persistence and adaptability. So when you ask what Earth's apex predator is, and I point to myself, I'm telling you that we are creatures of contradiction and choice. We are the species that hunted mammoths with stone spears and then mourned them when they were gone. We are the builders who can reshape continents and then work for generations to restore what we damaged. We are the explorers who reach for the stars not to conquer them, but to understand them, to find our place among them, to add our voice to the chorus of intelligent life in this galaxy. Marcus fell silent, his presentation complete, his truth delivered without embellishment or apology. Ambassador Thelvan's crystalline form pulsed through a sequence of colors that the translator rendered as thoughtful acceptance mixed with cautious optimism. You have given us much to consider, Marcus Chen of Earth. You have shown us that humanity's claim to apex predator status is not simple boast, but complex truth. You are dangerous, this is clear. But perhaps you are dangerous in ways that can be channeled toward creation rather than destruction. Marcus bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect that transcended species boundaries. That's all we ask, Ambassador. Judge us not by what we could be at our worst, but by what we're striving to become at our best. We are apex predators, yes, but we are also so much more. We are dreamers and builders, destroyers and creators, conquerors and stewards. We are human, in all the terrible and wonderful complexity that implies. As the council session drew to a close, as delegates filed out to process what they had learned, Marcus remained at the center of the chamber, a lone figure representing a species that had climbed to the top of their world's food chain through determination, ingenuity, and refusal to accept limitations. He had pointed to himself and claimed the title of apex predator, not with pride but with truth, not with arrogance but with awareness. And in that gesture, in that simple act of pointing, he had revealed everything that humanity was and everything it hoped to become. The question had been answered, the truth had been told, and the galaxy would never look at humans quite the same way again. They were apex predators, yes, but they were apex predators who had learned to be something more, and that made all the difference in the universe.